Hello there, Dr. Boss. In this episode, we're going to talk about something very raw. We are very smart. Doctors are very smart. We're the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, right? And we know that we need to take action. That is good for your business, good for your brand. It's good for you to find your financial freedom. But oftentimes, what Mike and I have seen is that they're being held back. They know what they need to do, but they're not taking that action that they need to do. And sometimes it's just being buried. So today we're going to talk about the internal fears and the external fears that doctors face or even think about or may not even know that they are stuck in that is preventing them from taking the next step forward for them to get their financial and business and family freedom. And we're just going to dive deep into that today. So it's going to be a jam-packed episode. So I'm Dr. Aaron Trong.
I'm Dr. Mike Wumeng.
Okay, so welcome to the Dr. Boss podcast. So you want to start with the internal fears?
Yeah, so, I've coached probably nearly 20 years, and I've helped a number of doctors go online, starting up their own businesses. But there are some, when we really get down to it, there are these internal fears that we have that we feel it really deeply, but we rarely say it out loud, and it stops you from doing what you want to do. So I think, this is a very important topic for us to cover today. And I think the first one is the fear of judgment from your peers, from your colleagues. What will the other doctors say if I start posting videos or selling online courses? I even remember, back in the day when I was working as an employed physician and I wanted to go out on my own. So I left my practice. Some of my colleagues knew what I was doing, others didn't. And I remember, they wouldn't say it to my face, but some of the things that I heard was, you know what, he'll be back. He'll be back to where he was again, where he's gonna be back with us again. And it was almost like they were envious on there, but it didn't make me feel really good. It didn't make me feel real. It's like I'm losing respect, and this is the days even before Instagram or Facebook. I always said I wanted to start my business. And, I had some colleagues that say, oh yeah, I started something on the side. It didn't work out. And it felt like they were kind of pulling me down. So they were almost expecting me to
fail.
To fail. Exactly. And, and I've seen it throughout the years too. I remember one particular, I don't get a lot of negative feedback, but every now and then, you see it. And even though you have like 99% positive, it's that 1%. And I remember reading I posted a video of myself on there, and there was like a comment. It was like, is this guy really a doctor? Is it really a doctor? Even when I talk about my credentials and everything like that. And then the other person said, I think he was a doctor, but he probably couldn't cut out to be a doctor. And I still remember that. And it wasn't fun. I just realized, that there are these fears and that prevent you from doing those things. And I think it's really good that we're talking all about this.
How did you kind of overcome that criticism that, it hurt? And I get those type of criticism all the time. People will criticize me. You're a woman. What do you know about talking about, ED and your gray hair? Why are you talking about this as well? And so oftentimes, doctors were not immune to criticism, right? And we are probably sometimes our worst critic. How did you not let that sink in deep, or did and you just overcame it?
I think it's because I had a conversation with one of my mentors early on. And it says, you're going to have haters. You're going to have haters if you're going to put yourself out there, if you're going to go and make videos, if you're going to go and create courses, you're going to have haters. And there's nothing you can do. And as someone who studies like stoicism, and I says, I can control what I can control. And I can't control what other people think about me. So why worry about it? I know what my own reputation is. I know my own morals and my own ethics on there. And he says, if you don't have haters, you're not trying. So you're not putting yourself out there. So it's almost the cost of doing business is that you're going to have people that if you're going to put yourself in the spotlight, and again, 99.9% of the people out there are going to be, they're going to love you. They're going to follow you. And we have, we've been blessed to have people who have become clients and customers of us. So we support those folks. But there's ones who they're not going to support us, and that's okay too. But it can't stop you from doing what you're doing. If you truly feel that you have something of value that you are sharing out to the universe or to the world, they deserve to hear it. And that's just the part of marketing point. You have to put yourself out there. And so it's funny, those same people who were, behind my back and saying he'll be back, they later on came to me as clients. Their own clinic hired me. They even hired me for marketing for their clinic. So it all comes around full circle, on there. And then what I realized is that there was almost like a jealousy to it, or they were envious that I was doing something outside of medicine. And so I guess that, and I know I'm going to continue to have haters, or there's continue to people, but it can't stop you from doing what you love. Again, if you have something of value, people need to hear it. And that's just part of having a business.
Absolutely. Well, it's like having a practice, right? You're not going to make every patient happy. You're going to have some
Yep.
patients that are unhappy, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like you're not going to make everybody friends, right? Either. Even the
Yep.
social side, not everybody you meet are going to be your friends. So just kind of accept that, because you're doing what is important. And the number, we're saying internal fears. What internal fears is the fears that you feel yourself. The number two is fear of losing your identity as a real doctor. And, such as like, I went to med school to practice medicine, not to go online and become an influencer. They feel that they are salesy, or they feel guilt or shame and pivoting away from medicine. And I have really go all in on YouTube since the beginning of 2021. And how I feel about it is that you're a doctor at the core, and that you are creating an impact and sharing your expertise to help people. So you're extending your impact just beyond the clinic. So it's not salesy, it's education. It's really actually I always feel like if you're a doctor, it's your moral compass and responsibility to share your knowledge with the world, who really need your guidance on what they need to do. Because you don't do it, somebody else that are not credible are doing it online, and they're making a lot of money from it. And then when we do as doctors, we sit there and we complain and we say, oh, they're not credential enough, they don't know anything. But you may be complaining, but they're the ones that getting the paycheck. So that is something that I have felt, and I felt all these fears. And my coach, Russell Brunson, said that, I love the quote. I heard it again today from him, and I want to say that for everyone that is on this episode, is that failure is the most info-rich thing you can learn from. Because if you fail at something, you have the information, and you can find out what you did, that you can correct it and fix it. And so it's the most information rich thing that you can do. So when he said that, it was so true, because that lead us to the next fear, which is fear of failure. Fear of failure. Like, what if I do this and no one buy? What if I did this webinar and no one shows up? And what if somebody criticized me like they did with Mike or myself? And we all know that doctors are professionals. I mean, I don't think you can be a doctor unless you're OCD and a perfectionist. You have to be. And oftentimes we don't want to be appearing wrong, or, or weak, and so forth. And I think that, we have to accept that failure is just part of learning. It's like when you first learn how to walk, you fall many times. When you first learn to ride your bike, you fall many times. I like to ski. I can't count the number of times I fall down even now. And I would tell you this, my coach and mentor, Russell Brunson, he has been in business and been an entrepreneur for 20 years plus. He just launched something, and he just said it. He just launched a funnel. It totally flopped. And he's known to sell 90 minutes, $3 million. And he had companies over $100 million in revenue, and he just launched something last month that totally flopped, with his reputation. He said only 30 people bought, So even he failed at his magnitude of success, and he's not afraid to share that. So look at failure as a learning lesson. You want to talk about the next one? Fear of visibility?
Yeah, and I just want to just comment on that. Thomas Edison, he took like 100 tries to make a light bulb. And when they asked him, you failed 99 times, he says, no, I was just one step closer to getting it. So you never know, one failure, you never know when that light bulb is actually going to turn on, and you're just one step closer to success. And so if we fail all the time, I've had webinars where I talk to myself and no one shows up, I'll actually think, well, I had one where my sister showed up. That was about it. And she didn't even buy. I thought she was going to buy it, but she didn't buy. And I just realized, well, you know what? That didn't work. That didn't resonate. I learned a lesson, and then I can learn a lesson from that. Just as Russell, he's got a big 1,000 following and sold 30 sales.
Yeah, millions of followers.
Millions on here. So, and it's, did I learn a lesson from it? And it's, oh yeah, well, that's probably, we even joke, well, I'm not gonna do that again, or I'm gonna do something a different way on there. So I just take it as, and I know you do the same thing, as education, our marketing education. information on there. Fear of visibility is one. Or I did this one podcast episode where I put myself in a mask. It was on a video on there because I was trying to illustrate like why most physicians, they would go on video, but they put themselves in a mask. I think I get an Iron Man mask or something like that. And if you were doing, your audience was, maybe you were doing makeup tips or something like that, where your face was important. Yeah, that's one thing. But they're just here to get the knowledge, the information from that. And again, you present yourselves in your clinic, for most of you who are working in a brick and mortar place, right? So it's just the same thing. You're putting yourself on a camera, and it doesn't have to. I had videos that look horrible on there. I remember we had this one grainy video on there. It made us millions of dollars. We sold the software, and it was like a grainy video that I took like subway station on there, and it didn't well because what they wanted the information that was provided on the video. Not necessarily that we didn't look like Brad Pitt or something like that.
Absolutely. And especially harder for women. Women are more judged on our looks, the way we are. And so in the beginning, when I was recording my first video or so, I would get all garbed up and everything with makeup and so forth. And I just realized that, people just want to get the information. Doesn't really matter how bad I look, as long as I don't show up with my hair all sticking up, look like I just got out of bed. But as long as is it decent, it's fine. So I've gotten over how I look. I've gotten over what to wear, and to really be, it's actually bring you back to your authentic self, because not every day, or what you wear in the office is what you should be doing your video. How whatever you act like in your office when you talk to patients, what you should be like when you're in your video. Especially for women, you don't have to be all fully makeup and nice hairs and everything. Those influencers, they look perfect because they probably spend 3 to 5 hours with makeup artists, working on them to make them look like that. So I honestly, whatever you're like in your office, it should be what you present, and just be your authentic self, because you always, when you're online, my coach tells me that when you're online, you're always gonna have people that judge you, trollers, criticism, and it's not against you personally. It's just the nature of the business. But you control one thing when you're online: all your comments and everything. You control that. You can delete the comment. You can hide the user from your channel. You have control of that. That's your backyard. And one of my colleagues in the inner circle says, your social media is your playground. It's your backyard. If people crap on it, just delete them like that. Okay, so
Yeah, it was just funny. It was like my son, he does Twitch, which is like a streaming for video games on there. And then he got this comment, and he said, "Hey, take a look at this comment." And he said, something like, he sounded like a hyped up Beavis from Beavis and Butthead. And my son was just laughing it off. He said, "Oh, this is hilarious,"
yeah.
on it. And it was like, this is cool. I'm going to respond to him, maybe be a little playful to it. And they were like corresponding on it, So you don't always have to address the trolls, but sometimes it's kind of cool to confront it and just to see where it goes. But again, just have fun with it if you can, and not just ignore them, because
Yeah, exactly. You can ignore it, or you can have fun with it as well too. So let's go on to the next one, which is fear of letting go of control. Boy, don't we know this as doctors, right? As doctors, we like control, right? Because that's what we do all day long. We discuss with our patient and we make recommendation, right? And we delegate, or we make recommendations. So it's anxiety about tech and about the automation and everything. So you have to it's a learning curve with anything. Is a learning curve, and you just gotta be comfortable, not be comfortable, know that you're gonna get out of your comfort zone, and that you will get better, 1% better every day. And it's how I counteract that. It's the feeling of control, and then that kind of lead into the fear of the unknown, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't want to waste my money, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. What to start? The ad, the content, the funnel, the software, and all that. And I see doctors get so bogged down in focusing on the software before they even know what they're going to do, what strategy, what the offer, what's the avatar like. They're focusing on the software first. So that's when you get a coach. That's when you get a mentor who can really show you the map step by step to how to get there. Like we all know what a mentor is like. When we were in med school, we had attending, right? We had rotation, you had attending. We were in residency, we had attending. That's how we learned to do what we learned to do. right? That's how we learn differential diagnosis. That's how we learn about potential adverse reactions. So it's like the same thing in business. It's like you don't know what you don't know. And until you work with a coach who's been there, done that are 5 steps ahead of you that can really guide you and show you the way. And that's why Mike and I had created the Dr. Boss Inner Circle program and the Dr. Boss Online Success Community to foster a community of learning, but also to help you give a roadmap so that way you don't feel lost or you don't feel fear, because there is I love this phrase, you don't know what you don't know. Anything to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, it was funny. I was having a conversation with one of my business partner, Ruben, good friend of both of ours, on here, and he coaches for this mastermind where there's like 2 levels. There is one that's at a high level. You have to make over $1 million, to be in this one. It's much more expensive. And then you have one that's like I think you have to make like a $500,000 or 100,000 online. And he really showed that there was a dichotomy between these two groups on there. The ones who were their business didn't make as much. I mean, still good money. They're really into the tech. They want to know the latest things on there. What is the latest AI? What is the latest files on there? But they end up not doing a lot of it, or they feel like they have to complete everything on there. Well, those they're making 7 figures a year. They really don't know a lot, but they know how to delegate. They know they know the strategy, the important things, but they're not like going on. How do I split test this funnel? What is the latest AI video software? What's it? They're not into that, but they know the big things, the 30,000 foot view of it, and where they go in their business. So I think it's something to keep note of. It's like where you are in your business. You don't have to be tech savvy to know everything on there. It's even better that you don't know. But what you do need to understand is strategy, marketing, how to delegate. Those are the important skills that you need. At least when I'm talking to these 7-figure, 8-figure CEOs on there, they understand the big things that move their businesses.
That's I definitely see that as well too. And one last fear of internal fear is that, and that sometimes the internal fears are harder to even overcome because you don't even know that they're there. They're so internalized within, is that fear of losing stability. Because doctors say, well, I make good money as a doctor. I may not be 100% happy, but I make good money. And what if this online thing doesn't work? So you can't have the cake and eat it, is what I say. Do you want freedom? You're fearful of losing that security, but with everything else, there is a grind. It's like med school, right? When you go to med school, everything is uncertain. You don't know when you're going to finish med school, so you got to grind it out, right? And then what that grind part is where you may not make enough money, but your acceleration of revenue generation is going to be a lot quicker, because if you just stay where you are, yeah, you may make 300, 400,000 a year, but you're not going to make, 7-digit a year. I guess you could if you're a neurosurgeon or orthopedic surgeon, you're more in the high specialty, or transplant surgeon. You could, but you're not going to be able to get to probably 10 million unless there are other investment that you do. So you just know that you got to go through the grind, and that you got to know that sometime, I will say this, and Mike and I know about this, that you yourself are your worst critic and you yourself are the constraint. And so you put in the grind, you're like, oh, this is just not made for me. I'm just going to switch. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs, not talking about doctors, but entrepreneurs, they give up and they're just like maybe one step away from their goal, but they're not seeing the certainty. So they just give up too early. And the people that we see success, they grind it out and they stay there longer than ever. Like, one of my coaches right now too, it's Alex Hormozi. I'm with him now, and he always stressed that he's in the game longer than anybody else. Yes, in one weekend, he made over $100 million, but he has planted that seed 7 or 8 years ago. Well, he was in the grind every day. He worked hardest than anybody else, but he told us that it wasn't, overnight or a year ago. It was a long time coming.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Yeah. So let's go now to the external factor as well. The external factors are the fear that are about business or money and time and logistics. And one of that is, we get these questions a lot, Mike, is that what about HIPAA compliance? Are they your patients? And do you have to get any certification or licensure to go online? And, do you need to worry about the medical board? So I just cut that right now. I've been online for 4 years now. What you're doing is just education, and what you're doing, unless they are in the same state that you have a license in, and you formally establish them as your patient, then they're your patient. If they're in a different state, you don't have a license, you're just an educator. That's all it is. And you put disclaimer, they sign a disclaimer that, you're just educating, and that they need to discuss with their doctor before they decide to do anything. I have a group that I'm coaching men with ED to regain sexual function, and we have 500 people on there. But I have them sign disclaimer, and we meet twice a month, and they know they need to talk with their doctor about it. They appreciate the information as well. So you don't have to worry about the doctor-patient relationship. And if a person raises it up, that's them. That's not on you. Yes, I do want to cover about the HIPAA is that if you're sharing a patient story, just make sure that you don't, of course, use the name. We know that, and that you don't do it, recently, but as well. So you don't want to, you don't want to say like the same initial or anything like that as well. So I share my real patient story all the time, but I kind of wait until like 3 months or so pass before I do that, because I don't want it to be like a patient I saw last week or something. Of course, you don't use the same initial, or sometimes I'll just make the age a little like 2 or 3 years less or so. So there's not some correlation with that. Anything else to add with that, Mike, at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's always lawyers out there. So no matter what one you want to do, people say, should I hire a lawyer? There's always a lawyer that you can pay to do all those things. Just, stay in your lane. Just, go into topics that you decide what topics you want to go into, right? So you can decide what areas that you want where to go into as well. Something that is more litigious, that might be something you may want to stay away from. So you decide whatever niche that you want to go to, but it shouldn't stop you from doing what you want to do.
Absolutely. So the next thing is time commitment. All right. And so this is the number one thing. We're all busy more now than ever. And you're thinking, well, I'm burnt out. Do I have time for this or not? And I already have another job. Am I going to pick on another job? Well, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the grind. And is it a priority? You'll make the time for it. Right. And to be honest, when I first started, I work on the weekends. I work after clinic. But with anything, you put in the time to nurture it, it will come to fruition. Then now I only do 2.5 days in the office, and the other really about 2.5 days I'm in the online business. So Mike, you've been doing it longer than I have, which is stuff outside the business. How do you manage your time?
Well, you have to see that this isn't a job. This is building an asset. Just like let's say you're doing real estate, or you're investing in stocks or whatever. It's time spent because you're trying to build passive income for that. Right now you're in a job that's substituting time for money. And so you need to build an asset that's a revenue generating asset. And that takes time for you to do. If you're already burnt out and you need to get income like tomorrow, I don't think building an online business is going to get you income tomorrow. I could be wrong on it, depending on what you do. It's going to take time. Just find a less stressful job, but just say, hey, what I did was I had my job, and then the money that I invested after paying for my, all my expenses in life, my mortgage, rent car, etc. I'm going to devote that income to building my own business on there. So that's the way that I framed it out, is understanding that I'm spending this time so I don't have to be, so I can have an asset that is making money for me, not me making money for another job.
Absolutely. And that it's like investing, right? Investing, like real estate investing. You got to put in the money first, and then it take time to mature. And that kind of leads into the next fear, is the fear of losing income during transition, right? It's like Mike said, if you're burnt out, get another job, maybe locum, so forth, and then work on the online business as well. And then, there's another fear of wasting money, meaning, the doctor may say, well, I spend money with this coach and this program and so forth. It hasn't panned out. Oftentimes, you have to, it's not, I wouldn't say it's wasting money. It's like, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, I've made many investments that didn't pan out, and I just call it the cost of doing business. But I truly believe it's not a waste. I truly believe it teaches me a lesson, because if I had done something and it didn't work out well, I learn from that, and I get better and I better. But both Mike and I have coaches, and I've had a coach since I started getting online was 2021. And we both have coaches because even though we coach other doctors, we still have a coach, and our coach have a coach as well. So, and that just tells you something as well too. And then the next part is about the tech, your software and the funnels and the website and so forth. Everything is learnable, doctor. You can always, like Mike said earlier, delegate it out, have somebody to build it out for you while you focus on what matters, which is creating the content. And do you want to talk about the next one about fear of standing out in the wrong way?
Yeah. So the fear of standing out in the wrong way. What if my hospital or partners disapprove? We kind of covered this, already. They're worried about that there's professional conflicts of interest, or like I remember had one doctor who he couldn't do social media because it looked bad. Again, read your rules for your company that you're at. So for like example, my friend in his hospital, they had a social media policy that he couldn't do that. Make sure that you can do that, because there could be some, but if it's something that you believe in there and you don't have anything like that, again, it's just putting yourself out there. It's the cost of doing business out there. There are people that you're going to reach, and you need to do whatever you can to reach them. And every now and then you're going to have some trolls who disagrees with what you say. That's fun. Laugh it off and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. So we want to end with some key beliefs here. Okay. We want to end that, if you might be thinking, well, I don't want to look unprofessional. And if you're feeling like you're leaving medicine, well, this is our message to you. You're not leaving medicine. You're leading it into the future, right? And then you might be thinking, well, I'm scared to start. I'm scared what people think about me. You know what? You already have everything you need right here. Your training, what's between your ears. You're already coaching your patient in the office. You're doing it every day. Now you're just doing it to a camera and impacting on a larger scale. So your expertise is your product. That is your brand, right? And the part is that you may think, well, I'm not techie. I don't know about the software or the funnel. Well, you don't need to be a tech expert. I wasn't. You just need to have a message, and you need to know how to articulate that, and, hire somebody or delegate to somebody that can do it for you. People, they can do it for you in hours that would take you months to learn. Like I know how to build funnel, but I don't build a funnel from scratch anymore. I delegate to somebody that can do it a lot quicker than I can. And then the last thing that I know our doctors fear is, what if I fail? And you have to think of it like this. The only failure is staying invisible while others that have less expertise than you leading the conversation are known as the expert in the field. I have seen many non-clinical people, expert in weight loss, expert in menopause, and are making $1 million a month. I'm not talking a year, a month, and just teaching people the symptoms when they're not even doctors at all. And then the last part is, I don't have time. Well, you know what? I'm starting to realize that online income give me back my love of medicine again, because I love seeing patients in the office now. I look forward to seeing them, even though I don't have to see patients in the office, but I do. And then the part is that I have time and geographic freedom, where if I go away somewhere for 3 weeks, I still have my online business that all I need is Wi-Fi signal and my laptop. So we've have experienced freedom, and we want to share it forward with the doctors and reframing, because we are almost the end of 2025. And, being online and with the advent of AI, if you're not online, you're going to be left behind. You really will be left behind. It's like even doctors now starting to have to integrate AI into their business, and AI is making you as an online creator a lot easier now than it was a few years ago as well. So having said that, it's never a better time for doctors to go online. You already have everything you need, and just know that it takes time and effort into it, but it will be a freedom and income accelerated much faster than you think it would be. Anything else to add, Mike?
No, I think we covered it. I think it's great.
Okay. Well, great. Well, we hope this is useful for you. We would appreciate it if you click notifications, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you think can benefit. And we are here. So join our communities at Doctors with an S, onlinesuccess.com is where we share how you can start getting online. And we are in there frequently to deliver value as well, too. So having said that, remember, you are not only a doctor, you are the doctor boss, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everybody.